them. But the goal is to make the majority of them come through and be achieved and be motivated and to be very successful. The specific purpose today is I only want to inform you about specifically being a competitive individual amongst the culture of competition. Let's talk about, there's a timeline I shared with David last night. This is the timeline why environment is important. I'm only going to touch on 2 topics because I want to answer questions. I believe that if the goal is to get to the end of this stage, every one of us is pre-wired to be great. You know what prevents us from being great quick enough? Environment. The reason why I didn't go to college when I was much younger is because I didn't have the right environment. I was smart. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink alcohol. But I wasn't as successful as I could be because the average person around me didn't have education. So they didn't motivate me to get one. So if this is where we start, and the goal is at the end of the stage, if we're full speed ahead, we'll get there. But this is what happens. We walk on that line, and then we move over here to the left because why? We have a clique of people. We have friends. And these friends have goals. And depending on how persuasive they are, it moves us in this direction. Because now, their goals have become ours, especially if we're not strong enough. So then after a period of as some time lapse goes by, you begin to realize this is not the friend for me or this is not an organization, so you walk back. It's kind of like working out, right? You wait until it gets to a point and then you say, okay, now I'm going to get back in the gym. Every January, that's everyone's New Year's resolution. And then every January, that's everyone's New Year's resolution. So you start back over and now you're full speed ahead because you realize that that's not the right environment. Well, although you've been doing very good for a year, you started here, now you started back here. So now you're moving, and what happens next? Always a relationship. Then a relationship takes you off track, right? You get in a relationship, you fall in love. Everyone loses their mind when love is involved. I've been there, I got that t-shirt, trust me. So when you're over here now in love and in this relationship, especially women are very sensitive, very emotional, and they feel. Men just bulldogs and go with their head, right? So women feel, and now this guy takes them off of the good road they was on because of love, and they kind of walk on with that. The moral of this story is those are the roadblocks that keep us and restrict us from moving forward. But in order to move past that and understand it, you have to have experience. You have to have lived it in order to be able to recognize it ways before it comes. Experience is going through something, getting education. Wisdom is the ability to see it way before it happens, right? Wisdom is the ability to see it way before it happens. So now when you're walking and you see that relationship, you can identify that that relationship is not healthy early. We always know the early signs. We just choose to ignore them, right? So now you begin to move forward. In my life, this is exactly what happened. When I became a part of Phi Theta Kappa, this was not my environment. The typical people in Phi Theta Kappa was not the typical people on the outside that I would befriend. I was with rock stars for the last 10 years. What am I doing here? But what happened is I didn't find and take the time to identify and realize we're actually the very same people. Because I wasn't interested, because my environment didn't encourage me to do it. One of the best pieces of advice my father gave me in order to reach that goal is my father said, this semester, because I literally graduated, 4.0, never had a B. And when I tell you, when I got a 97 in class, I was pissed. I wanted 104. Many of my professors would tell you, Miguel wanted the 110 at the end of the class. If I missed a point, I wanted to know why. I would challenge professors so many times as to say that they were wrong for writing the question in that way. I'm serious. I'm serious. I got into it with one professor tremendously one day because of that, and in the end I won because he was wrong. But I graduated 4.0 with the AS in International Business, 4.0 with the CCC in Business Operations, 4.0 with the CCC and as a business specialist. Many of my professors was hurt when they found out I wasn't going directly to college. Many of my professors was. Many people in Phi Theta Kappa, some of the leaders in this room was a little disappointed because they believed in me and knew that if anyone could do it, it would be me. Leaders, political parties came to me because I was nominated for All Academic USA. I was on the second team for All Academic Florida. Any award you think could be received, I went for it. Because I said it's all or nothing. If you have to spend an hour in a class and so do I, and we have to spend the same amount of time, I'm going for the A instead of the D. It's the exact same amount of time that we're spending. So now that I was a little older, if I'm gonna invest this time, I'm gonna get the most from it. Where the scholarship at? I want it. That's exactly how I went forward to achieve it. So what happens when you move from that successful point in your life and move further past that? You have to utilize Phi Theta Kappa as your free, on-the-job training that you can't get fired from. And this is what I'll actually move into the end of it. You have to utilize this education. One of the goals that I had in Phi Theta Kappa, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say this in front of all of you. I'm going to speak at the International Convention one day. You didn't hear me say I think. I know I'm going to speak at the International Convention one day, because if this institution was built on the reason it was, they would want me to come back. Because I know my story is really unique. I don't have to do Dr. Shaquille O'Neal. I'll still draw a pretty big crowd. If you don't utilize the on-the-job training, when we had our chapter, Dr. Odu was one of them professors he let me run with. He would get his complaints, Dr. Odu, Miguel is just, he's pushing us. But at the end of the term, at the end of the year, Ashley Young, raise your hand, Ashley. Ashley was one of the young ladies in my chapter who probably complained about me the most. She couldn't get it. She said she couldn't understand the way my leadership was, and sometimes I expected too much from the chapter. And therefore, there was a little conflict amongst me and Ashley. But it's okay. It never was to a point where it hurt the success of the operation. Well, recently, I think I was in Honduras. This was 4 months ago. And guess what I get an email from? Ashley. You know what Ashley said? This is a long time after I'm out of school. Ashley thanked me because she reached a point in a position where something triggered and she thought, and she said, you know what, Miguel, you were actually a great leader and I miss you. That's a compliment. That's a great compliment considering the person that was one of my rivals at the time. Utilize the knowledge and the education that you have before you move into the world. Why do I say that? I have an AS in international business. When I graduated college last year, I was supposed to run for international president. I was motivated by Robert, Dr. Smith, several people. Miguel, that's you. And I wanted it. But I was stuck between making a decision where just running for one more year or utilizing all this empowerment and making a difference in the world. I was selected to study in China during school last year. I studied in China. This is how 2012 was. We won every award possible, with the exception of a couple, but you can never get 100% of anything. You won't fight for it next time. But we won a lot of stuff. I studied in China for 3.5 weeks, Beijing, Shanghai. I was selected to talk to a guy named Andy who has an app called Coco Voice. And he asked me specifically, what do I think is a good way to enter into the US market? After I gave him my answer, he asked for my phone number. I've been in contact with Andy since. Andy is the top 30 in China, the top 30 richest people under 30 years old. Right before that, I was selected by one of my professors in ATC to go to London and Birmingham to present a marketing plan to a multi-million-dollar company called Precision Ceramics. Now, I couldn't take the class because there's too many classes. My credits was maxed out. So he said the school is willing to approve that if you're willing to go to London as a part of our program, present this to this company, we will make that automatically your credit for that marketing class. I said, you're going to pay for me to go to London. And I get to go there for 2 weeks, and all I have to do is present this marketing plan. If this wasn't an opportunity to have on-the-job training, I don't know what was. I wish I would use the PowerPoint to show you. I'm in the director's room, a college student, with these multimillionaires looking at me like, what do you have to tell us? Guess what? They utilized 2 of the things I said, which I saw leaks in their viral marketing. The world is changing. Just because you have a textile company does not mean that your media doesn't identify with the average user, because we have technology. We look at things differently. They wasn't equipped to that. They thought it didn't matter. They used it. Did I get money? No, but it's on my resume that I was a consultant for multi-million-dollars in money. So when I returned back, I wanted a job. My father offered me a job in Afghanistan, making $150,000 a year. More money than I probably would ever make. Well, that's partly due to the hazardous pay. When you go over there and pay hazardous pay, because it's dangerous. But I was a tough guy. I said, let's go. At this point, I've achieved everything I had in Phi Theta Kappa. I'm going. Well, that's when Syria was bombing a couple of things, and he called me back and said, maybe now is not the time for you to come. So I applied for school. I got accepted to Cornell, Columbia University, University of Pennsylvania, UT, USF, you name it. Most of them full-ride scholarships. And I applied to go in January, and I said, I'm gonna look for a good job, not a job making $10. I'm from Theta, Kappa. You know what I achieved? What I look like going to sit in the room, having some board of directors talk to me. I can do the talking. So I wanted a real job, and I said, my goal is I'm gonna apply for these colleges, and I'm just be humble and go to USF. I just want to get that bachelor's, because I want my master's. One day I want a PhD. I want to write books. That's what I want to do. The experience is important. You can't teach people to write if you haven't lived, right? It's impossible. You have credibility. So what I did is, I accidentally found a company at the last minute. Colleges called me back. I said, okay, I'll start in January. Had enough money saved up the last minute until December, but that was it. My dad said, you need to work. But I was determined that I wasn't going to sit there. All this knowledge I encompassed for the last 3 years, I was so driven. All these conferences, all these conventions, and talking to all these people I ultimately networked with. What happened is my network of people on Facebook went from 90% music business to 90% Phi Theta Kappa. I started deleting people. You know why? I grew up. So my interest in people changed. If you don't have people that pull you up and throw you a life vest, you have people that drown. There is no in between. If you don't position yourself around people that make you win, then you will always lose. It's just how it works. The people that you have around you is critical to who you are. When a man walks in the room, thank you. When a man walks in the room, he's identified by 3 things. Do you know what they are? It's rhetorical. His hair, his watch, and his shoes. I got a good haircut, very nice watch, and my shoes I don't walk in all the time. That is a true story. If you're in sales, buy an expensive watch. It increases your sales. If you want the girl, hair, watch, shoes. I'm telling you. You want the job, hair, watch, shoes. Because a man that grooms himself is very presentable. A man that wears a timepiece appreciates art, appreciates looking a certain way. And shoes, you can tell where a man has been. And if you need to switch them, right? But I took this energy and I found a job. And that gives you past, what it was, and then present. Can somebody tell me what they think is a good job salary? Somebody yell it out.
150,000.
150,000. What else? A good job. That's a really good job. 250,000. That's pretty good. Me and Eric talked about it. Well, what if I tell you this? My father does not know what I do. He knows what I do for a living, but I will not look him in his eye and tell him what I mean. You know why? Because he worked 29 years. He's a general. He has his master's degree. He's a huge international business. The president calls my dad. The sheikh from Dubai calls my dad. My dad turns down jobs making tons of money. And I make more than my father does now, and he doesn't know it. And I'm not saying I'm proud of that, but the era my father came up in and the one I'm coming up in is too different. My father didn't have Phi Theta Kappa. And I'm not just saying this, guys. You notice I haven't talked a lot about leadership. I'm talking about environment and culture. The people that are around you in this room gives you and provides you with a culture to be competitive. When you walk away from this and you're not around these people, you'll almost drown because you will realize that the average person around you don't want to talk about education. They don't want to talk about empowerment. They want to talk about what they want to talk about. And therefore, it limits your ability to grow because they don't continue to elevate you up. Every Monday in the middle of the ocean, I give a huge talk to hundreds of people in the cruise industry. What do I do for a living? I am an expert, a luxury consultant. When I applied for this job, everyone had PhDs and master's degrees. When I got to this job, they asked me what was my education. I said associates in science at Hillsborough Community College. But I was also president of Phi Theta Kappa. They said, what is that? I told them. I said, wow, you got all that responsibility? So now, you use that in alliance with the AS. I had a master's or a PhD there. So they gave me a shot. 13 people were brought to Miami to apply for this job. The job consists of you have your own TV show, you are popularized as a celebrity on cruise lines, and you have to travel all around the world to deal with all of these merchants and retailers and drive revenue into these businesses. So if you piss somebody off, you piss off 40 bosses at one time. If you make somebody happy, you make 40 bosses happy at one time. And then each boss has a brand. So every Monday, I give a huge presentation. When I started in this business last year, in October the 4th, I was all the way at the bottom. There's 72 people in the world that do my job. The advantage I have is Theta Kappa. I'm required to be on TV. I am required to speak to people that have millions of dollars. They're looking for the loopholes and the credibility. When people with these multi-million-dollar companies come up to me and said, I've listened to people speak about this specific product, but I have never heard someone say it like that. Here's a business card. If you ever want a job, call me. I've got offered jobs in Canada, overseas, in one of the islands. I got people tell me, Miguel, if you ever travel to any country, do not spend your money. Come stay with us, because it's network. As long as you're making the money, you're good, right? But I know what happens if I start slacking. This is what I do all over the world. I started at the bottom, and they told me in 3 to 4 years, Miguel, you can be here. You're a superstar in the making. You just need to fine-tune some things in this business. Well, I wrote them a letter within 1 month and 3 weeks and said, by January 1, if you don't promote me, I'm resigning, because I know my worth. I know what I'm capable of, and the average person that you have in these higher positions, they are not reaching the people properly. They're just doing the job. You need somebody that's going to take this job to the next life post and affect the consumer so they always come back and buy. So I'm just letting you know I know my worth, and this is a shot in the dark. Like, this kid got an associate's degree from a community college. December 26th, I get a call and said, Miguel, we transshipping you to a new ship, which is a promotion in salary. Guess what? They set me up to fail, because later I found out this was the worst ship ever. Revenue was down, and nobody wanted it. That's what happened. I raised revenue in 2 weeks, 70%. The cruise line went crazy. Again, in Theta Kappa, they teach you to critically think. They give you deadlines. And aligns with your education, they give you stuff that you can't possibly think you can overcome. So I was so used to challenge. The average person that just go to college just to go, you're not used to that. You're just used to focusing on the grade. I focus on the result of Theta Kappa. Well, guess what? The owner cruised with me. Billionaire David Gadd is a billionaire in the diamond industry. He cruised with me to see my presentation, to see my interaction. May the 1st, they're sending me to Alaska on the #1 ship in the entire world. They told me it would take 4 years. That would have been 6 months. And I am #1 in the entire world. And I do not say that to brag, because I know with that comes a ton of responsibility. But they're sending me on the Diamond Princess. I'll be a consultant on the Diamond Princess for 4.5 months in Alaska. They said, Miguel, it's brutal, but it's almost impossible to achieve that in 5 months. And I have. And why? My competitive nature will not allow me to settle for less. We all have a choice here, right? We all have a choice. You can utilize your college education and your time amongst Theta Kappa, and you can say, I'm just going to do what's necessary to get by. I'm going to go to these conferences just because my friends are there, and you can do that. I've seen my fellow Kappas do that. Or you can say, you know what, I already have to spend the time anyway. Why not get the most of it? At every one of these conferences, you should be networking, getting Facebook, maintaining your LinkedIn, talking to other people from similar genres and similar academics and see what they're doing. What are their goals? If you're not doing that, you're not setting yourself up to win, because when you finally get your big break, it's a small window. They want you to SHIT or get off the pot, is what my dad said. It is time to deliver results. When you have that on your resume, they want to see. They want action. Companies now want someone competitive in nature, can multitask, and can think critically on the dime. I'm happy to say that I learned that from the people here in this organization, fellow professors, staff, administrations, and not just from my college. Some of my closest relationships are people from colleges all over the country, because I met them at conference. And I can call any one of these people and ask for letters of recommendation. That's power. That's utilizing a service and an organization, which is a family, to always make me successful. And what do I do with it from there? I fly back. I got off in the middle of Mexico. I flew here. I have not been home to see my family since October the 4th. I don't get to go home until April the 10th. But when I heard that there was a conference, I got off the ship, Flew from Cozumel, Mexico. Flew here, flight got canceled because I'm last minute multitasker. I told them, give me my ticket back because it got canceled. I went to another kiosk. They flew me there. No cars. They told me if I don't make a reservation, no cars. So I left Enterprise, I went to National. They gave me a nice car and I drove here. Because I was determined to get here because I know the power of this organization. I felt like if I can show you that last year, I were you, and it's capable for you to achieve that, and to me that was more priceless than anything. Because you get to give back. Remember, success is measured by the people that you make successful. And you can't just look at yourself and say, yeah, I'm great, this is what I do. But how many other people have you given that template in order to make them successful? And then it becomes a domino effect, and then you are really successful. Because a true leader doesn't care who gets the credit. And I say that to you guys. You're president, you hold offices, you're thinking about running for president, or any of the officers on the status on the board. Don't care who has the bragging rights. At the end of the day, when you sit back, the team wins. No one calls out your name. If the president messes up and the chapter wins, the president looks good because of the team. So it was said yesterday by several people, don't care about bragging rights or I'm the boss. That means nothing. Because if I had an ego, I wouldn't be here. Because I paid my own ticket to get here. Because I wanted to be here to give back. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you with this. There's a quote that says, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. How do you know when you're in the position that you're supposed to be in? In closing, I'll leave you with something that I call the flapping fish. If you take a fish out of a water bowl and you put a fish on a table, it flaps, it looks silly, right? It doesn't look nice because the fish doesn't belong there. But if you pick that fish up and you put that fish in water, the fish is beautiful because that's where the fish belongs. So when you're where you're supposed to be, your success comes almost immediate. If you're in the same situation with the same friends, with the same environment, doing the same process, wake up and change it. It's not going to change. Remember the fish. If you're not soaring and you're not, everything you're touching is just sparkling and turning to gold, you're in the wrong situation. Why do you think people in Phi Theta Kappa advance so quickly? They're in an environment where they should be. You earn the grade, you get here. But academics is really not what this organization is about. It's a misconception. It's about leadership, empowerment, and building a family and network of people that you can reach out to at any given second that can lift you up when you think that you're suffocating and you can't swim. So that is my time, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for